Emerald Brooks was still holding her legal pad when Marcus Caldwell slid a red folder across the glass table and said the one sentence that made the whole boardroom go quiet. Somebody leaked our case strategy to Adrian Vale. No one moved. The air in that downtown Houston conference room felt too cold all of a sudden. 20 stories above the street, with glass walls and polished floors, Caldwell and Pike looked like the kind of place where people smiled with perfect teeth and ruined lives with clean hands. Every head turned toward Emerald. Not some of them, all of them. Her throat tightened. Her phone buzzed again against the table. 2 missed calls from her father. 3 from West Houston Recovery Center. 1 text from an unknown number. Stop asking questions about Pike development if she wants Samuel safe. For 1 second, Emerald forgot how to breathe. Then the boardroom door opened, and the last man she needed to see stepped inside, black suit, calm face, cold eyes. The kind of quiet power that made other people stand up straighter without knowing why. Adrian Vale, the billionaire rival she was trying very hard not to love, the same man her father worked for, the same man who might have been the reason her whole life was starting to crack open. But that mess did not begin in that boardroom. No. That part of the story started 6 months earlier, on a hot Houston morning, with wet grass, bus brakes, and a young woman from 3rd Ward trying to act like her whole future did not fit inside one cheap tote bag. Emerald had always believed that a person could get used to almost anything. Used to sirens at night. Used to people getting judged for where they lived before they even opened their mouths. Used to stretching one paycheck so far it almost became prayer. What she had never gotten used to was being underestimated. That part still made her jaw tighten. On the morning everything began, Emerald stood in the small bathroom of the apartment she shared with her father in 3rd Ward and stared at herself in the mirror. Navy blouse. Black slacks. Hair neat. Small gold hoops. No extra softness anywhere. She looked like a woman trying very hard not to look nervous. From the kitchen, Samuel Brooks called out, "If that mirror tells her she perfect one more time, she gone miss that bus." Emerald rolled her eyes, but she smiled. "I heard that," she called back. "I said it loud on purpose," Samuel replied. That was her father, gentle voice. Dry humor. Work boots by the door before sunrise every day. He had spent years taking care of flowers on land he could never afford to stand on, and somehow he still came home kind. Emerald walked into the kitchen and found him at the stove in his faded work shirt, moving scrambled eggs around like they were part of a serious legal process. Samuel looked up and nodded once. "There she is," he said. "Attorney Brooks." Emerald sat down and gave him a look. "I am not an attorney yet. I'm a first-year associate with student loans and one good blazer." Samuel pointed the spatula at her. "Titles catch up later. Work comes first." That line right there could have been printed on the front door of their apartment. Work comes first. It had been true her whole life. When other kids spent summer break sleeping late, Emerald had spent hers helping Samuel on the River Oaks estate where he worked. She learned how to trim rose bushes, carry mulch, and stay out of the way when rich people acted like workers were part of the landscaping. She also learned something else. A clean yard did not mean a clean heart. Samuel set a plate in front of her. "Eat." Emerald took a bite, then glanced toward the counter where her phone sat face down. Samuel followed her eyes. "She call." Emerald knew who he meant, Lena, her mother. West Houston Recovery Center had rules, schedules, counselors, and soft painted walls. It also had Lena Brooks for the 4th time in 2 years. This time, everyone said she sounded serious about recovery. This time, everyone said she looked clearer. This time, everyone said maybe it would stick. Emerald had heard "this time" so many times it no longer sounded like hope. It sounded like homework. "She called last night," Emerald said carefully. Samuel leaned back against the counter. And I let it ring." Samuel's face did not harden. That was the thing about him. He did not guilt people when they were already carrying enough. He just nodded. "She's still your mama," he said quietly. "I'm still tired," Emerald replied. Neither of them said anything for a moment. Then Samuel took his coffee mug and gave a small shrug. "Fair enough." That made Emerald laugh a little. There it was. Their language, honest and simple. Then Samuel looked at the clock. "Now if Attorney Brooks wants to walk into that fancy law firm before lunch, she better move." Emerald grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Samuel stopped her with one hand on her shoulder. His eyes softened. "I mean it," he said. "I'm proud of her." Samuel did that sometimes. He called her when emotion got too close. Like nomming it straight would make it too big. Emerald swallowed hard and nodded. "Thank you, Daddy." Then she left before the tears could rise and ruin the careful face she had built for the day. Downtown Houston looked like a different country from Third Ward. The streets were cleaner. The windows were shinier. People moved fast and acted like they had somewhere important to be even when they were just carrying coffee. Emerald stepped off the bus, adjusted the strap of her tote bag, and looked up at the building that held Caldwell and Pike Legal tall. Gray, expensive, the kind of place that seemed to ask a question before anyone inside spoke one. Do you belong here? Emerald answered that question the way she answered most things, by walking straight in. The lobby smelled like cool air, polished stone, and money. At reception, a smiling woman handed her a visitor badge and a packet so thick it looked like it came with homework for the rest of her life. Welcome to Caldwell and Pike, the woman said. Emerald smiled back. Thank you. By 9:30, she had met 6 associates, 3 assistants, a human resources manager named Brenda who used the word excellence, so much it stopped sounding real, and one white woman with sharp eyes and a coffee cup that read, I support women's rights and women's wrongs. That woman stuck out her hand. Donovan, she said. Litigation support, I answer questions, solve disasters, and know where the good snacks are hidden. Emerald shook her hand. Emerald Brooks looked at her like she was sorting facts into neat boxes. First day, is it that obvious? Claire snorted. Only because Emerald still looks hopeful. That got a real laugh. For the first time all morning, Emerald's shoulders dropped an inch. Claire leaned in. Quick tip. If Brenda says circle back, she means never. If somebody says we're like family here, run. And if Marcus Caldwell remembers her name this early, that means one of 2 things. Emerald raised an eyebrow. Which are? Claire sipped her coffee. Either Emerald is brilliant or Emerald is about to be useful. Before Emerald could answer, a voice behind them said, Why not both? Claire turned so fast she nearly hit herself with the cup. Marcus Caldwell stood there smiling. He was one of those men who wore expensive suits so naturally it almost looked unfair. Black, polished, mid-40s, smooth voice, silver watch, easy charm. His name was respected in Houston legal circles, and his billboards with Warren Pike's development group were on buses all over the city. He extended his hand to Emerald. MS, Brooks, University of Houston Law Center, top trial advocacy scores, strong writing sample, impressive recommendation letters. Emerald shook his hand. Thank you, sir, smiled Whiter. No need for sir. Around here, results matter more than titles. Gave Emerald one quick side glance that clearly meant, that sounds nice, but do not be fooled. Marcus gestured toward the hallway. Walk with me, Ms. Brooks. Emerald followed him past glass offices and conference rooms named after Texas judges. I read your intake notes, Marcus said. Third Ward raised, yes. Yes. Good. Houston needs more talent from every part of the city. He said it smoothly, too smoothly. People with roots, perspective. Emerald said nothing. Marcus glanced at her. You're cautious, I like that. Emerald gave him a polite smile. Law school did that. That made him chuckle. By the time he left her with a stack of research assignments, she still did not know whether she liked him or not. But she knew one thing, men like Marcus Caldwell never wasted attention. If he noticed someone, he had a reason. The first 2 weeks at Caldwell and Pike flew by in a blur of deadlines, document review, and trying not to look lost when people tossed around phrases like equitable relief before lunch. Emerald worked hard and stayed quiet. That was her method. Listen first. Learn the room. Make no careless mistakes. At night, she came home tired enough to eat standing up. Some evenings Samuel was already back from River Oaks, boots by the door, TV on low, dinner waiting. Some evenings he worked late and came in smelling like cut grass and garden soil. One Thursday night, Emerald dropped her bag by the couch and found him clipping coupons at the table. She blinked. Coupons? Samuel did not look up. Money still count when people get degrees. Emerald laughed and sat down. He studied her face. That place wearing her out? A little. That mean yes. Emerald rubbed her forehead. Everybody speaks in full paragraphs about billing. Claire drinks enough coffee to power the building. Marcus keeps asking what kind of law I really want to practice, and I do not know if that means he cares or he's measuring me for something. Samuel nodded slowly. Probably both. Emerald looked at him. Why is he smarter than half the people in that office? Because plants teach patience, Samuel said. Then his phone rang. He checked the screen and his face changed just enough for Emerald to notice. Okay, she asked. Work, Samuel said. Crew issue. Answered and stepped onto the balcony. Emerald watched through the open door as her father listened, said very little, then ended the call. When he came back in, he looked tired in a different way. Mr. Vale wants the South Garden finished before some event Saturday, he said. Emerald paused. You still never met him. Samuel put the coupons aside. A few times, he mostly in and out. Busy man. Emerald shrugged. Must be nice. Gave a small smile. Busy don't always mean nice. That line stayed with her. That same Friday afternoon, Claire appeared at Emerald's desk like a storm cloud with mascara. Emergency, Claire said. Emerald looked up. Did somebody die? Worse. Jenna from corporate backed out of tomorrow night's scholarship gala because she claims seafood gave her a rash and destiny is unfair. Marcus wants another associate there. Emerald stared. Why are Emerald's problems always wearing heels? Claire set down a garment bag. Because the legal profession hates peace. Marcus chose Emerald. Why? Claire made a face. Because Emerald is smart, presentable, and from what I can tell, not likely to knock over a champagne tower. Emerald leaned back in her chair. Comforting. Patted the garment bag. Good news, Claire plans ahead. This is a backup dress from a cousin's failed engagement party. It should fit. Emerald blinked. Claire keeps spare formal wear in the office. Claire looked offended. Claire works in law. Disaster has seasons. The scholarship gala was held at a museum space near Houston's Museum District, and everybody inside looked expensive enough to have their own lighting. Emerald stepped out of the rideshare and took one deep breath before walking in. The dress Claire lent her was dark green, simple, elegant, and a little more beautiful than anything Emerald would have chosen for herself. Her curls were pinned back. Her makeup was light. She looked good. She also felt like a girl from Third Ward pretending she had always known which fork to use. Marcus found her near the entrance. Excellent, he said. Stay close for introductions, smile when needed, speak when useful. Emerald looked at him. That sounds like instructions for a houseplant. Laughed like she had told a joke at exactly the right price. The room moved around them in soft music and low voices. Judges, donors, partners, city people, developers. One name floated through conversation more than once. Warren Pike. Emerald noticed that. She filed it away. A while later, after one too many introductions to men who said things like, the future of urban growth, without blinking, Emerald escaped to the edge of a display hall near a glass sculpture and a table of tiny desserts that looked too delicate to actually satisfy anybody. That was when she heard a man's voice say, if they use the word revitalization one more time, I'm going to start charging them rent for it. Emerald turned. The man standing beside her was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a black tuxedo that fit like it had been designed during an argument with God. His skin was deep brown. His jaw was clean-shaven. His expression was calm, but there was a quiet amusement in his eyes that almost threw her off balance. Emerald looked back toward the crowd. So Emerald wasn't the only one tired of the fake speeches. No, he said. Though most people here are better at pretending. Emerald studied him. And what is he pretending to be? He looked at her dessert plate. Interested in mini lemon cakes. That almost made her laugh, almost. She folded one arm. That answer says too much and not enough. Smiled then, small and dangerous in the way only a very confident man could manage. Fair. For some reason, Emerald stayed. The music shifted. Across the room, a city official was talking loudly about affordable housing, as if he had invented the concept. Emerald muttered. That man has never seen a real eviction notice in his life. Stranger glanced at her. Emerald has, she hesitated. When rent goes up in neighborhoods people suddenly decide to care about, yes. Now he looked at her with more interest. That sounds personal. It is. He nodded once, not pushing. That surprised her. Most rich-looking men asked questions like they were doing charity work. This one listened. What brings Emerald here? He asked. Work. That sounds painful already. It is a legal gala, she said. Pain was implied. He chuckled softly. He asked, new associate. He took a glass of water from a passing tray and handed it to her like he had every right to know she needed one. Still idealistic then. Emerald took it, suspicious and amused. That depends. Is he one of those men who thinks idealism is cute because money solved all his problems? Now his brows lifted. That sounded personal too. It probably was. The first time he laughed for real, not loudly, just enough to make Emerald hate how much she liked the sound of it. He held out his hand. Adrian. No title, no last name, just Adrian. She looked at his hand for half a second before taking it. Emerald. His grip was warm and firm, not too much, just enough to feel intentional. Emerald fits, he said. She narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? It means some people look like they had to survive before they learned how to shine. That should not have landed as hard as it did, but it did. And before this gets worse, go ahead and hit like if Emerald should have trusted her instincts and stayed far away from that tuxedo in the first place. Because once Adrian smiled like that, peace left the building. Back in the room, a woman in a gold dress interrupted. Adrian, there you are. Emerald noticed the way the woman spoke to him. Familiar, careful, slightly impressed, Adrian turned. Excuse me a moment. Then he looked back at Emerald. Don't disappear. The nerve of that man. Emerald waited exactly 6 seconds before whispering to herself, oh, she absolutely should disappear. She walked straight toward the hallway. Claire, who had arrived late and somehow already had 2 dessert plates, caught her near the coat check. There Emerald is, Claire said. Why does Emerald look like a scandal is forming? Emerald blinked. What? Claire leaned closer. Who was the man by the sculpture? Emerald tried for calm. Just somebody named Adrian. Froze. Then very slowly, Claire put down one of the dessert plates. Adrian, Claire repeated. Yes, in a black tux. Yes, tall, looks like the tax bracket matters to him. Emerald frowned. That is both rude and weirdly accurate. Closed her eyes. Oh no, Emerald felt her stomach sink. What? Claire looked at her the way people look at friends who have just stepped onto a wet floor in socks. That was Adrian Vale. Stared, Claire continued in a low voice. As in Vale Stratton. As in Reed Stratton Legal Group's CEO. As in the biggest rival this firm has in the entire state. The hallway sound seemed to dull for a second. Emerald said, very clearly, no. Nodded. Yes. He did not say that. Of course he didn't. Men like that never lead with the billion. Emerald looked back toward the hall she had just left. Adrian Vale, rival CEO, the man she had spent 15 minutes arguing with like he was a very annoying and very attractive stranger with good posture. Claire folded her arms. Please tell Claire Emerald did not flirt with him. Emerald gave her a dead stare. Define flirt. Groaned. Oh, this is bad. It was one conversation. With a rival billionaire. He did not have a sign on his forehead. Claire rubbed her temple. Okay, fine, good news. Emerald can still pretend that never happened. Emerald looked down at the water glass still in her hand. The problem was not that she had spoken to Adrian Vale. The problem was that she had liked speaking to Adrian Vale. Much too much. Saturday came hot and bright. By noon, Emerald had almost convinced herself the gala meant nothing. A conversation. That was all. A very dangerous conversation with a very dangerous smile, but still, nothing had happened. So when Samuel called and asked if she could stop by River Oaks with the peach cobbler he forgot on the counter that morning, Emerald said yes without thinking much of it. She had done this before. Many times. The drive from 3rd Ward to River Oaks always felt strange. Like the city itself changed clothes halfway through. Small brick homes gave way to gates, wide lawns, trimmed hedges, and houses so large they looked bored. Samuel worked on one of the biggest estates in the area. Emerald parked near the service entrance and got out with the foil-covered dish in her hands. The scent hit her first. Fresh-cut grass. Damp soil. Roses. For one quiet second, she was 12 again, dragging a hose across stone and listening to her father explain why roots mattered more than flowers. She found Samuel near the south garden, kneeling by a bed of white hydrangeas with clippers in one hand. He looked up and smiled. There she is, delivering contraband sugar. Emerald handed him the cobbler. You left it. Set the dish aside and wiped his hands. Good, means I raised her right. Emerald took in the estate grounds. This place still looks like a magazine nobody from 3rd Ward asked for, Samuel laughed. And yet the flowers still need watering just like everybody else. She stood beside him while he checked a row of rose bushes. You tired? He asked without looking up. A little. Work. From people. Samuel nodded like that answer made perfect sense. After a moment he said, That gala go okay? Emerald hesitated. Samuel noticed. Of course he did. He asked. Emerald met somebody. Samuel's brows rose. That so? It was nothing. Usually means it was something. Emerald sighed. He was annoying. Samuel grinned. Pretty. Emerald looked at him. Whose side is he on? Samuel chuckled. Before she could answer, the low sound of an engine rolled across the driveway. A black SUV came through the gate and moved slowly toward the main house. Samuel stood up straighter. Workers nearby subtly shifted. Not fear. Respect. Emerald followed his line of sight. The SUV stopped. The driver got out first. Then the rear passenger door opened, and Emerald's whole body went still. Black slacks. Open collar. Sunglasses in one hand, Adrian stepped out like he had stepped out of her thoughts and into the one place he had no business being. At least no business being in asterisk her asterisk life. He looked toward the garden. His eyes found Emerald. And just like that, the whole world felt too small. Samuel glanced between them once. Then a slow, confused smile crossed his face. "Well now," he said. Adrian walked over with calm steps, though Emerald could see the surprise under that calm. "Emerald," Adrian said. She did not move. Samuel looked from one face to the other and let out a quiet breath. "Baby girl," Samuel said, still sounding halfway amused and halfway concerned. "This is Mr. Vale, my employer." The words landed one by one. Employer. Emerald looked at her father, then at Adrian, then back at the estate. The polished stone paths, the roses, the quiet power in the air. The man from the gala standing in the middle of the garden her father had spent years caring for. No, this was worse than a rival billionaire, much worse. Because now the man she could not stop thinking about was not only the enemy across a boardroom table. He was tied to her father's world, tied to her family's rent, tied to the one safe thing she had always trusted. Adrian removed his sunglasses slowly. For the first time since she met him, he looked like a man who did not have a polished answer ready. Samuel broke the silence first. "You two know each other." Emerald let out one short laugh that held no joy in it at all. Adrian's gaze stayed on hers. "We've met," Adrian said. That was all, just 3 words. But the way he said them made Emerald's pulse jump anyway. Samuel looked back and forth again, clearly putting pieces together he did not like. "Well," he said carefully, "that sounds like a story." Emerald finally found her voice. "Oh, it is," she said, and if that had happened in real life, the comments would have been on fire. "So go ahead and drop one now. Should Emerald turn around, get in her car, and never come back to River Oaks? Or should she stay and hear Adrian out? Because what he says next changes everything." Adrian stepped closer, but not too close, close enough to speak. Not close enough to claim space that was not his. "Mr. Brooks," Adrian said, his voice even, "would you mind if I borrowed Emerald for a moment?" Samuel's face changed, not angry, protective. Old-school fathers from Third Ward did not care how expensive a man's shoes were. If that man looked at their daughter too long, the weather changed. Samuel folded his arms. "That depends." Adrian nodded once, as if he respected that answer. Emerald almost hated him for making respect look so natural. Samuel turned to her. "Her choice." Course he did. That was Samuel, never controlling. Always steady. Emerald looked at Adrian, then at her father, then at the giant house behind them. This was supposed to be a quick drop-off. Cobbler in. Cobbler out. Maybe a laugh, maybe a hug, not this. Not the man from the gala. Not the rival CEO, not her father's employer. Not a face she had spent half the night trying not to replay in her mind. And definitely not the way her own heart betrayed her with one hard beat after another. She lifted her chin. 2 minutes, Emerald said. Adrian gave a slight nod. "That's fair." Samuel said nothing, but his eyes followed them both. As Emerald walked with Adrian down the stone path, every part of her was on alert. The roses smelled too sweet. The air felt too warm, and somewhere deep in her chest, one truth kept pressing harder and harder against the walls she had spent years building. This man was trouble, not loud trouble, not obvious trouble, the worst kind. The kind that arrived well-dressed, spoke gently, and made a smart woman question whether walking away would be strength or loss. Adrian stopped near a row of hedges and turned to face her. "Emerald," she cut him off. She said, "He starts." Adrian looked at Emerald in the River Oaks garden and waited. She did not soften. She did not smile. She folded her arms and said again, "No, he starts." For 1 second, the only sounds around them were sprinklers in the distance and clippers from somewhere deeper in the property. Samuel had stepped a few yards away to speak with one of the grounds crew, but Emerald could still feel her father watching without looking. Adrian gave a small nod. "That's fair," he said. "I should have told Emerald who I was at the gala." Emerald let out one short breath. "That is one way to say it." Did not flinch. "At the museum, I answered what she asked," Adrian said. "But yes, I left out my last name. I shouldn't have." Emerald stared at him. "You left out the part where you run the biggest rival to my law firm." "Yes, you left out the part where my father works for you." Adrian's expression shifted just slightly. "I didn't know that part until 30 seconds ago." That caught her. She wanted to dismiss it. She wanted to stay angry because anger was clean. Anger had edges. Attraction did not. But his face did not look rehearsed. Emerald narrowed her eyes. "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect Emerald to believe I know Samuel Brooks as Samuel," Adrian said evenly. "A man I trust. A man who has worked this property longer than most people in my world keep their word. I did not know his daughter was the woman from the gala. That landed harder than she wanted it to. She looked away for a second toward the stone walkway, then she looked back at him. And now you do, Emerald said. Now I do, Adrian replied. There was something calm in the way he answered. Not cold, not careless, just direct. That made him more dangerous. Emerald lifted her chin. So let's make this simple. I work for Caldwell and Pike. You run Vale Stratton. My father works here. Which means this was a bad idea before either of us even opened our mouths. Adrian's mouth almost curved. That conversation at the gala didn't feel simple. That is not the point. It might be. Please don't do that polished rich man thing where everything sounds clever until it means nothing. That got the faintest smile out of him. There it is again, he said quietly. That thing she does. Emerald blinked. What thing? She says exactly what everyone else in the room is too afraid to say. She hated how much she liked that answer, so she went colder. Good. Then hear this clearly, Emerald said. I am not interested in being somebody's secret distraction or bad decision. Changed in Adrian's face then. The light ease vanished. You wouldn't be, he said. It was simple. Too simple, no flirt, no performance. Just truth spoken low, that made her pulse jump in a way she deeply resented. Before she could answer, Samuel approached with slow steps and a look that said he had given them enough time and no more. You good? Samuel asked Emerald. Emerald looked at her father. I'm fine. Samuel turned to Adrian. Mr. Vale, Adrian gave him a respectful nod. Thank you, Samuel. Samuel's gaze moved between them once more. M.H.M. That one sound carried a full paragraph. Emerald almost laughed, which was unfortunate because this was not a laughing moment. She looked at Adrian one last time. This doesn't happen again. Adrian held her gaze. Emerald can decide that after she knows more than my last name. Was a bold answer, not rude, just bold enough to irritate her. She stepped back. He really does talk like a contract. Samuel hid a smile behind a cough. Adrian, to his credit, looked amused. And Emerald talks like cross-examination. Good, she said. Then we understand each other. She turned and walked back toward her car with all the dignity she could manage. The problem was not that Adrian Vale had lied. The problem was that part of her still wanted to hear the rest. The drive back to Third Ward felt longer than usual. Samuel rode with her in silence for the first few blocks. That was another thing about him. He knew when to give people room inside their own heads. Finally, he spoke. So, he said, looking out the passenger window, that was Mr. Adrian Vale. Emerald kept both hands on the wheel. Apparently, Samuel glanced at her. She going to tell her father how she met him, or is that under attorney-client privilege? That made her snort before she could stop herself. At a gala, Emerald said. We talked. Then Claire told me who he was. Samuel nodded slowly. And did he disrespect her? No, mislead her. Emerald thought about that. Yes, a little. Leaned back. That sounds like a lawyer. Emerald shot him a look. Whose side is he on today? Samuel's smile faded. Her father's side, always. The humor left with that sentence Emerald swallowed. Daddy, I don't like how tangled this is. Then stay clear, Samuel said. A man can be decent and still carry too much power for peace. She looked at him then. That was not random advice. That was life experience. Before she could ask more, Samuel added, Mr. Vale has always treated the staff well, better than most. But good manners and money are not the same thing as safety. Emerald looked back at the road. I know, he nodded. I figured she did. By Monday morning, Emerald had thrown herself back into work hard enough to almost believe she had control again. Almost. Caldwell and Pike looked as polished as ever. The lobby still smelled expensive. The elevators still moved like they had somewhere richer to be. But Emerald walked in with a new tension under her skin. Claire noticed immediately. She dropped into the chair across from Emerald's desk with a coffee in each hand. One is for Emerald, Claire said. The other is for Claire's concern. Emerald took the cup. That sounds unhealthy. Nodded. It is. Now tell me why Emerald looks like she lost an argument with fate. Emerald hesitated. Claire leaned in. If this is about Adrian Vale, blink twice. Emerald took one slow sip. Claire gasped. Oh, it got worse. Set the cup down. He's my father's employer. Froze mid-breath. Then she whispered, Stop. I wish I could. Claire sat back. No, absolutely not. Houston is too big for that kind of mess. Emerald gave her a tired look. And yet, rubbed her forehead. Okay, new rule. Emerald is not allowed to stand within 6 feet of any man with a private driver. Before Emerald could answer, Brenda from HR popped her head around the corner. Miss Brooks, Mr. Caldwell would like to see you. Lifted her brows. That sentence has ruined many mornings. Caldwell's office looked exactly the way Emerald expected a powerful man's office to look. Large windows, dark wood. 2 pieces of art that probably cost more than her student loan payments. A view of downtown Houston that made the city feel small. Marcus stood by a screen on the wall. "Miss Brooks," he said warmly. "Come in." Emerald stepped inside. Marcus pressed a button, and a map of Houston appeared. Then the camera view tightened on one section, 3rd Ward. Her shoulders locked before she could stop them. Marcus noticed. Of course he did. "As you know," he said, "Houston is growing. The city wants strategic redevelopment in underused corridors. Pike Development is working with several partners on a mixed-use project that could transform this area." He said transform like it was holy. Emerald looked at the highlighted streets, Emancipation Avenue. Homan, Elgin, Tuam, Cleburne, she knew those blocks, not from maps, from life, from bus stops. Sidewalk cracks, church fish fries, corner stores, heat rising off concrete in July. Marcus turned to her. "I want you on the file." Emerald kept her face still. "Because I grew up there." "Because you're smart," Marcus said. Then he smiled. "And yes, because context matters. A project like this needs someone who understands the community." Emerald looked at the map again. "The community usually hears redevelopment and thinks rent is about to rise." Clasped his hands behind his back. "Only if they assume fear before opportunity." "Sometimes fear is experience," Emerald said. Pause just long enough to matter. Marcus's smile did not leave, but something behind it tightened. "That's exactly why I need Ms. Brooks," he said. "A voice that can help this firm see clearly." Emerald looked at the property list in the lower corner of the screen. Lot acquisitions, quiet title actions, transfer disputes. One line made her stomach dip. "Brooks, Lena M." Her eyes stopped, just for a second. Marcus kept talking. "This is confidential, very confidential, the kind of work that gets young associates noticed." Emerald forced herself to look back up. "Understood." "Good," Marcus said. "And Emerald, yes, try not to let personal history cloud professional judgment." He said it lightly, like advice, but it landed like a warning. Back at her desk, Emerald closed the office door, pulled up the file, and stared at the property records again. There it was, Lena M. Brooks. In a big way. Not highlighted, just one name buried inside dozens of transfers and shell holdings, still enough to make her go cold. Claire came in without knocking, took one look at Emerald's face, and shut the door behind her. "What happened?" Claire asked. Emerald turned the screen. Claire read the file in silence. Then she looked up. "Oh," Claire said softly. "That's not good." Emerald pointed. "That's my mother's name." Leaned closer. "Could be another Lena Brooks." 3rd Ward. "Connected to a lot 2 streets from the church I grew up in." Emerald shook her head. "No," crossed her arms. "Do not accuse anybody yet. Paperwork lies for a living in this city." That was the most Claire sentence Claire had ever spoken. Emerald let out a breath. "I need to know what this is." Nodded. "Then start clean. Pull county records, no office gossip, no drama, and do not ask Marcus first." "Why not?" "Because if this is innocent, he'll smile and explain it away." Claire looked at the screen again. "And if it's not innocent, he'll know Emerald noticed." That was enough for Emerald. She clicked into the public filing history. The more she read, the worse it got. Quick transfers, old signature forms, a title correction filed 2 years earlier, a mailing address that led nowhere, one notarization date that overlapped with one of Lena's rehab stays. Emerald sat back slowly. Claire looked at her. "Tell Claire Emerald is seeing that right." Emerald nodded. "Those dates don't make sense." Gave one sharp exhale. "Well, there goes my peaceful lunch. Before this gets any messier, go ahead and comment this. If Emerald found her own mother's name inside a secret land file, would you keep working the case, or would you start digging right away? Because one thing about truth in rich people's paperwork, it never likes daylight. That evening, Emerald called West Houston Recovery Center from her car before heading home. She almost hung up when the nurse transferred the line. Then Lena answered. Her voice sounded clearer than Emerald expected. Softer, too, like somebody trying very hard not to scare away the little trust left in the room. "Baby," Lena said. Emerald closed her eyes. She had not heard her mother say that word sober in weeks. "It's Emerald," she said. Lena gave a small laugh that almost broke in the middle. "I know who my baby is," sat between them. Then Emerald asked, "What did you sign?" Lena went quiet. "When?" Lena asked. "That's not an answer." "I know," Lena said. "I'm trying to remember before she gets mad." Emerald leaned against the steering wheel. "Mama, please," Lena inhaled slowly. "Years back, maybe 3, maybe 4, a man came around one of the times I was out. He said he was helping clear old tax issues. Said there was a family lot with my name tied to it through some paperwork. I didn't understand half of it. Emerald's stomach sank. Did Daddy know? I don't know what Samuel knew and when, Lena said, shame thick in her voice. I was not in a good place. I signed things I should not have touched. Emerald pressed a hand to her forehead. Lena rushed on. I'm not asking her to forgive me. I just need her to listen. A counselor brought me an intake form today with my old signature on it. It looked wrong. Too clean, too practiced, like somebody copied me. Emerald's whole body stilled. Who brought it? She asked. A woman from some office. She said it was routine verification. Lena's voice dropped. Baby, I know how I sound, I know, but something about that paper felt dirty. For once, Emerald did not think her mother sounded confused. She thought Lena sounded afraid. I'm coming by this week, Emerald said. Lena let out a shaky breath. Okay, then quieter. Thank you. Emerald did not know what to do with those two words. The next few days moved like a storm building in heat. At work, Marcus pushed the redevelopment file harder. At home, Samuel got quieter. At night, Emerald kept checking county records until the numbers blurred. Then Thursday brought a public planning hearing at Houston City Hall. Marcus wanted notes from the room. Listen for resident pushback, he told Emerald. Keep it factual. As if people losing homes was just a line item, the hearing room was packed, residents from Third Ward, church leaders, tenants, small property owners. Local pastor, a woman from a housing nonprofit, 2 city staff members trying to look neutral. Warren Pike himself sat near the front, silver tie, smooth smile, expensive confidence. Emerald stayed near the side wall with a notepad. Then she saw him, Adrian. He was not seated with developers. He was 3 rows back beside an older black woman in a navy suit and a younger man with a stack of folders labeled Third Ward Preservation Coalition. Emerald stared. He looked up as if he felt it. Their eyes met across the room. No smile this time, just recognition. The hearing dragged on with speeches about growth, investment, and cultural stewardship said by people who clearly used those words differently. Then one elderly homeowner stepped to the mic. Granddaddy bought that house in 1968, he said. Now everybody wants our block because somebody finally noticed we're close to downtown. That ain't renewal. That delayed respect with a price tag. The room murmured. Emerald wrote the words down. She could not help it. They were true. After the hearing, she stepped into the hallway and nearly collided with Adrian. Convenient, she said. His gaze dropped briefly to her badge from Caldwell and Pike. I could say the same. She folded her arms. Why are you here? He looked toward the hearing room. Because some of the people in there asked for legal support. Emerald frowned. From Vale Stratton. Not formally, Adrian said. From me, she searched his face. Why? Because I know what a clean land grab looks like when it puts on a suit. That answer stopped her cold. He must have seen the shift in her expression because his voice softened. Emerald should be careful with that Pike file. Her jaw tightened. You don't get to warn me about my own job after hiding who you are. You don't have to like me to hear me. Their eyes held. Then Emerald said the thing she had not planned to say. My mother's name is in the file. Adrian's expression changed. Not shock exactly, more like confirmation of a fear he already had. How deep? He asked. Emerald took a step back. Why does he sound like he knows that's possible? Adrian lowered his voice. Because shell acquisitions don't just target empty lots. They target weak paperwork, old signatures, people in crisis, families too tired to fight. For one terrible second, she believed him completely, and that was what frightened her most. Then say what you know, Emerald said. I can't without exposing matters I'm not free to discuss, Adrian replied. Emerald laughed once, sharp and hurt. There it is, rich man mystery. His face went still. No, it's legal ethics. That's convenient too. Looked at her for a long moment. If I could hand Emerald every answer right now, I would. She wanted to ask why she did not. Instead, she said, that still doesn't explain why he cares. His reply came low and simple. Because some people spend a lifetime building a home and one signature should not be enough to steal it. That should not have sounded personal, but it did. Before Emerald could decide whether to trust it, her phone rang. Samuel. She answered at once. Daddy? His voice came through thinner than usual. She busy? Emerald straightened. What's wrong? Nothing major, Samuel said too quickly. Just wanted to know if she was coming by after work. Need to talk. Emerald's pulse changed. About what? A pause then, about old papers. The line went quiet. She drove to River Oaks so fast she made herself angry. By the time she reached the estate, the sun was low and heavy, painting the lawns gold. Samuel was near the tool shed, sitting on an overturned bucket with a bottle of water in one hand. He looked tired, not regular tired, deep tired, the kind that made a man seem older all at once. Emerald hurried over. "Why didn't you tell me you weren't feeling good?" Samuel waved one hand. "Because she would show up doing exactly this." Doing what? Looking like she about to fire somebody. Even now, he found room for humor. That made her chest ache. She crouched in front of him. "Talk to me." Samuel looked past her at the gardens, then down at his hands. "Some years back," he said slowly, "Marcus Caldwell came around through somebody at the church, said there were title issues on an old family lot tied to your mama's people, taxes, ownership confusion. He said if we signed the right cleanup papers, things could be straightened out." Emerald felt her stomach drop. "And," Samuel swallowed, "at the time, your mama was in one of her bad periods. We were behind on everything. Marcus said he could connect her to treatment, help move things along, keep the city from taking the lot entirely." Emerald stared at him. "Did you sign?" Samuel's silence was answer enough. Her voice cracked. "Daddy," looked up, pain all over his face. "I signed some things, not all, and later when I realized some pages didn't match what I was told, I tried to pull back. Marcus said making noise would only hurt us, said there were already filings in motion." Emerald felt sick. "Why didn't you tell me?" Samuel let out a tired breath. "Because her whole life I've been trying to keep mud off her shoes." Burned behind Emerald's eyes. "You can't protect me with silence," she whispered. "I know," Samuel said. He tried to stand, then his face changed. One hand went to his chest, the other grabbed the edge of the bucket. "Daddy?" Samuel's knees buckled. Emerald caught what she could, but he was heavy, and panic made everything clumsy. She shouted. Footsteps pounded across stone. Adrian reached them first. "What happened?" he asked, already kneeling. "He got dizzy, he just..." Emerald's words broke apart. Adrian looked at Samuel's face, then at the untouched water bottle. "Samuel," Adrian said firmly. "Can you hear me?" Samuel's eyes fluttered. Adrian pulled out his phone. "I'm calling emergency services." Everything after that blurred. Voices, a staff member bringing towels, an ambulance. Emerald in the back seat, gripping her father's hand all the way to Memorial Hermann in the Texas Medical Center. Doctors asking questions. A nurse saying dehydration, exhaustion, blood pressure spike. A doctor finally telling her Samuel was stable and likely needed rest more than anything else. Only then did Emerald realize Adrian was still there. He stood at the end of the hospital hallway, jacket off, sleeves rolled, phone silent in one hand. He looked like a man who had canceled the rest of the world. That should not have mattered, but it did. And if you're still here, this is the part where everything gets harder. So tell me this. Do you trust Adrian yet, or is he still too smooth to believe? Because what Emerald sees next is either proof he cares, or proof he's been too close to her family for comfort. Emerald walked down the hall toward the vending machines just to breathe. That was when she saw the folder. Adrian had set it on a chair beside him. The top page had county seals and scanned signatures. Her eyes dropped to one line. Brooks, Lena M. Emerald went cold. When Adrian turned and saw where she was looking, his face tightened. "You went through my family's records?" she asked. Her voice was low. That was how angry she was, not loud, just cold. Adrian picked up the folder slowly. "Public records, I had them pulled after the hearing. You had no right." "I had reason." "That is not the same thing." "No," he said. "It isn't." Emerald stared at him. "So what now? He plays hero after investigating my mother." Adrian's jaw shifted. "I'm trying to figure out who used her." The sentence hit too close. She hated that some part of her believed him again. "Then why not tell me?" she asked. "Because Emerald works for the firm attached to the deal," Adrian said. "And because if I hand her active findings without context, I risk more than one case." She laughed in disbelief. "There is always a reason with men like him." His voice dropped. "And there is always a wall with women who had to survive everything first." That shut her up for half a second, long enough to hurt. Then a nurse stepped out to tell them Samuel was awake for a moment. Inside the room, Samuel looked pale but clear-eyed. He reached for Emerald's hand first, then he glanced at Adrian. "Still here?" Samuel asked weakly. Adrian gave a small nod. "Yes, sir." Samuel looked back at Emerald. "Tool chest," he murmured. "Bottom drawer, blue envelope." Emerald frowned. "What blue envelope?" But Samuel had already drifted back toward sleep. The nurse adjusted his blanket and smiled gently. "Let him rest." Emerald stood there with too many questions and not enough strength left to hold them all. She left the hospital after dark, exhausted and wrung out. Adrian offered to have a driver take her downtown to pick up her car from the office garage. Emerald almost refused. Then she thought about the hour, the fatigue in her bones, and the fact that Samuel was stable. "Fine," she said quietly. The drive to downtown Houston was silent. Too silent. Streetlights slid across the window glass while her mind ran in circles. Lena's name, Marcus's map, Samuel's confession, Adrian's folder. By the time the car reached Caldwell and Pike, Emerald felt like her whole life had been taken apart and stacked in the wrong order. The lobby was nearly empty. Upstairs, the office floor looked dimmer than usual. But it was not empty. 2 security officers stood near the conference room. And Claire was waiting by Emerald's desk with a face so pale it nearly erased her freckles. Emerald's stomach dropped. Claire stepped close and lowered her voice. Marcus knows you've been asking about Pike filings. Before Emerald could answer, Brenda from HR appeared from nowhere, looking tense. MS. Brooks, Brenda said carefully. Mr. Caldwell needs to see you right away. Emerald looked past her. Through the glass wall of the conference room, Marcus Caldwell stood at the table with a red folder in front of him. The same color as an emergency. The same color as a warning. Her phone buzzed, 1 voicemail. West Houston Recovery Center. Her thumb shook as she pressed play. MS. Brooks, a nurse said on the recording. This is West Houston Recovery Center calling regarding Lena Brooks. She left the facility against medical advice at 4:12 p.m. today. Please contact us as soon as possible. Emerald stopped walking. For 1 second, the whole floor seemed to tilt. Claire grabbed her elbow. What happened? Emerald looked up, face drained. Mother is gone, she said. Then the conference room door opened. Marcus Caldwell stood there in his suit and perfect calm. MS. Brooks, he said, voice smooth as polished glass. We need to discuss why internal strategy connected to Pike development appears to have reached Adrian Vale. Emerald's heart slammed hard once, then again. Inside the room, the red folder lay open. And for the first time in her life, Emerald understood how fast a dream job could start to look like a trap. Marcus Caldwell stood in the conference room doorway with one hand on the glass and that same calm look he wore when he wanted other people nervous. Miss Brooks, he said, inside, now. Emerald's phone was still in her hand. Her mother had left rehab. Her father was in a hospital bed. And now the man who had spent weeks smiling at her like a mentor was looking at her like a problem. Claire squeezed Emerald's arm once, then let go. Inside the conference room, the red folder lay open on the table. 2 security officers stayed outside the glass. Brenda from HR stood near the wall, looking like she hated every second of this. Marcus closed the door, then he slid several printed pages toward Emerald. These were sent from your work account at 8:43 p.m., he said. Internal strategy on Pike development. Forwarded to a private address tied to Vale Stratton. Emerald looked down. There were screenshots. File names. Time stamps, her name. It looked ugly. It also looked wrong. At 8:43, Emerald said slowly, I was at Memorial Herman with my father. Folded his hands. That's what Emerald says. It's true. Sure, this evening has been very upsetting. Marcus's voice stayed smooth. But the firm has to protect itself. Emerald stared at him. This was what made men like him dangerous, not shouting, not threats. That soft professional tone people used right before they tried to bury somebody alive with paperwork. I did not send those files, Emerald said. Marcus held her gaze. Then someone used your credentials. Then investigate that. We will. He said it like a promise. It sounded like a curtain. Brenda finally spoke. Miss Brooks, pending review, the firm is placing Emerald on immediate administrative suspension. We'll need the badge, laptop, and office key. For 1 second, Emerald just stood there. This job had meant everything, years of school, debt, bus rides, missed sleep, her father's pride, her own proof that she had made it out and upward, and now all of that was being boxed up in one cold sentence by people who still smelled faintly of expensive hand soap. Marcus softened his face just enough to play kind. Take the night, he said. Get some rest. We'll revisit this when emotions are lower. Emerald looked him dead in the eye. My emotions are not the problem in this room, she said. Something in Marcus's expression hardened, just for a second. There he was, the real man under the polish. Brenda stepped forward. Ms. Brooks. Slowly, Emerald set her badge on the table, then her key, then the firm laptop. Marcus watched every move. He had expected a scene. He was not getting one. Emerald lifted her chin. Since Emerald no longer has access, I trust the firm will preserve all server logs, entry records, and metadata. Gave a small smile. Of course. Was too easy. Too quick, and that was when Emerald knew for sure. He was not surprised this happened. He was prepared for it. Outside the room, Claire was waiting by Emerald's desk with Emerald's tote bag already packed. That efficient? Emerald asked quietly. Claire gave a humorless smile. Claire has worked here long enough to know when rich people are about to pretend procedure is fairness. Emerald almost laughed, almost. She took the bag. Claire leaned in. Do not go home yet. Emerald blinked, glanced around. Parking garage, 5 minutes. Then Claire walked away like she had never said a word. The garage smelled like concrete and heat even at that hour. Emerald stood beside her car, mind racing, when Claire slipped through the stairwell door with a backpack, 2 phones, and the face of a woman who had made a terrible but exciting choice. Okay, Claire said, slightly out of breath. Good news and bad news. Emerald crossed her arms. Start with whichever hurts less. Held up a flash drive. Claire checked the document server before it could lock things down. Emerald stared. Claire did what? Please appreciate how illegal adjacent Claire is being for friendship. That was so Claire that Emerald nearly smiled despite herself. Claire's tone shifted. The bad news is somebody absolutely planted that leak. Emerald went still. Claire pulled up screenshots on her phone. The export came from Emerald's credentials, yes, but not from Emerald's laptop. It came from a desktop terminal on the 22nd floor using a partner override. Emerald leaned closer. What does that mean? It means someone with higher access piggybacked on Emerald's account, Claire said. And the print job on those so-called proof pages, sent from the printer outside Marcus Caldwell's office. The air left Emerald's lungs. Claire nodded grimly. Exactly. Claire, prove it. Claire lifted the flash drive. Enough to make Marcus sweat, not enough to win alone. We need more. Emerald thought of Samuel's weak voice in the hospital room. Tool chest, bottom drawer, blue envelope. I know where to start, she said. Claire's brows rose. That sentence worries Claire deeply. Before Emerald opens that blue envelope, hit that like button if Marcus Caldwell is getting on your last nerve too, because a planted leak was only the beginning. What Samuel hid in that tool chest had been waiting years to be found. River Oaks looked almost unreal at night, too quiet. Too manicured, too expensive to be innocent. Adrian was waiting by the service gate when Emerald pulled up. No driver this time, no suit jacket, just dark slacks, rolled sleeves, and a face that looked like he had not slept much either. He stepped toward her car, then stopped when he saw Claire get out too. Claire looked him up and down. Great, the billionaire is here. Adrian gave the smallest nod. Miss Donovan, Claire blinked. He knows Claire's name. I noticed the people who ask better questions than my own board members, Adrian said. Claire turned to Emerald. Annoying, but kind of elite. Even Emerald had to fight a smile at that. It vanished fast. I'm here for the envelope, Emerald said. Adrian's expression sobered. I already told security to leave the tool shed unlocked. Didn't ask questions. He didn't try to take over. He just made it possible. That mattered more than she wanted it to. The shed smelled like soil, oil, and cedar. Samuel's tools were lined up the same way they had been for years. Orderly. Careful. Proud. Emerald crouched beside the metal chest in the corner and pulled open the bottom drawer. There it was, a blue envelope worn soft at the edges. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were copies, old property tax notices, a title review form with Samuel's signature, a rehab payment receipt from something called * Caldwell Community Outreach Fund **, a business card with Marcus Caldwell's name on it, and folded into the center, one note written in Samuel's careful block letters. Emerald unfolded it. If Emerald finds this, then Samuel waited too long. The papers changed after we signed. Your mama signed help forms, not transfer forms. Marcus said speaking up would stop Lena's treatment and ruin your chance with the firm. Do not let his fear become yours. Love, Daddy. Emerald had to sit down right there on the shed floor. Claire crouched beside her first. Oh, Claire whispered. That man is filth in cufflinks. Emerald laughed once, but it broke in the middle. Adrian stayed by the doorway, giving her space. That made it worse somehow, because a controlling man would have stepped in. A selfish man would have made this about himself. Adrian did neither. He just asked quietly, "Can I see the title review form?" Emerald handed him the papers. His eyes moved fast, then he looked up. This authorizes a records check only, not a transfer. Leaned over. Meaning whatever got filed later was built on swapped pages or forged attachments, Adrian said. Emerald stood slowly. Then my father told the truth. Adrian met her eyes. I never thought Samuel was lying. The room went still. Then Emerald asked the question she had been holding back since City Hall. How did he know what a clean land grab looked like? Adrian's jaw shifted. For the first time, he looked less like a billionaire and more like a man remembering something he would rather forget. When Adrian was 14, he said quietly, His mother lost family property in Fifth Ward through a title dispute dressed up as legal help. Different people. Same kind of paper. Same kind of pressure. She never recovered from the shame of being tricked. Emerald looked at him. This time when she did not just see the suit, the money, the River Oaks walls. She saw the wound. Adrian glanced at the papers in his hand. That's why I recognized the pattern around Pike. Blew out a breath. Houston really loves recycling evil. No one argued with that. Then Emerald's phone rang, unknown number. She answered at once. Hello. A woman's voice came through, older and breathless. Baby, this is Deacon Ruth from New Hope Baptist. Don't panic. Lena, here with me. Emerald nearly sat back down. She okay? Emerald asked. She's scared, but she's here. Emerald closed her eyes. I'm coming. New Hope Baptist sat just off Emancipation, in the part of Third Ward where old brick and memory still held on against every fresh sign promising luxury living minutes from downtown. Lena was in the fellowship office with a paper cup of tea and her rehab bracelet still on one wrist. She looked smaller than Emerald remembered. Not weak, just worn. When Emerald stepped in, Lena stood too fast, then stopped like she was not sure whether a hug was welcome. Emerald was not sure either. So she did the next honest thing. She sat down across from her. Lena nodded slowly, accepting the distance. Sorry, Lena said first. For leaving, for scaring her, for. Most of the last 15 years, honestly. Emerald swallowed. Why did Mama leave rehab? Lena placed a manila envelope on the table. When that woman showed me those papers today, I remembered I had these in a storage locker by Wheeler Station, Lena said. And I got scared they'd disappear before Emerald saw them. The envelope were photocopies of intake sheets, a church outreach flyer, and a yellow carbon copy signed by Lena years earlier. Not a deed, not a sale. An application for temporary treatment assistance and title review counseling. Lena touched the page with one shaking finger. He met me at a church event, Marcus Caldwell, said he was helping families clear title messes and get folks into treatment. He had a smile like a TV pastor and a watch bright enough to make bad choices feel fancy. Even in that moment, Emerald almost smiled. That was the old Lena. The funny one. The woman addiction had buried but not erased. Lena continued. I signed where he pointed. He said they'd finish the forms in office. I never signed no property transfer. Mama swear to that? Emerald asked. Lena looked her daughter dead in the eye. On every day I am trying to stay alive, yes. Emerald believed her, maybe not because Lena had earned all her trust back, not yet, but because pain had finally stopped sounding theatrical in her mother's mouth. Now it sounded plain, which meant it was real. Claire, who had respectfully stayed near the door, cleared her throat. Claire also found proof the leak was planted. Lena blinked. Who is Claire? Currently, Claire said. An underpaid white woman making very bad career choices for justice. Lena looked at Emerald. She seems solid. She is, Emerald said, and that was the truth. By morning, the shape of the whole thing was finally visible. Marcus Caldwell had built his redevelopment case partly on vulnerable signatures, muddy title histories, and people too overwhelmed to fight. When Emerald noticed Lena's name in the file, he moved fast and framed her as the leak before she could put the story together. Claire spent the early hours building a clean timeline from what she had pulled: office badge logs, print records, server timestamps, partner override access. All of it pointed up the chain, not to Adrian. To someone inside Caldwell and Pike, probably Marcus, possibly with help. At 9:30, Emerald got a text from Marcus. Let's not make this uglier than it has to be. Coffee. 10 a.m. Black Walnut downtown. Claire read it over her shoulder and made a face. That message smells like manipulation and expensive cologne. Emerald looked at the time, then at her phone. Good, she said. Then he can say it in public. Claire's eyes widened. Emerald is going? Yes. Adrian, who had joined them at New Hope with coffee and the quiet energy of a man who had already canceled half his day, set one cup down and said, Take your phone, record it. Snapped her fingers. Texas is one-party consent. Finally, a fun state fact. Emerald looked at Adrian. He's very comfortable with this. Adrian took a sip of coffee. Marcus only wins if everyone stays polite while he lies. That line stayed with her. At Black Walnut, Marcus was already seated by the window in a charcoal suit, as if human ruin came with brunch hours. He stood when Emerald arrived, no Claire, no Adrian. They stayed outside. Marcus gestured to the chair. Thank you for coming. Emerald sat and placed her phone face down beside her cup, voice memo already running. Marcus leaned in slightly. Ms. Brooks is too smart to blow up her future over documents she doesn't fully understand. Emerald said nothing. He continued, the firm is willing to handle this quietly. Resignation instead of termination, a neutral reference, discretion regarding her mother, history. It was, the threat wrapped in silk. Emerald's voice stayed even. And if Emerald says no, Marcus's smile thinned. Then things get noisy. Her father's paperwork becomes public. Her mother's credibility gets examined by people who are not kind. And Adrian Vale will not be able to protect her from what this city whispers when it smells scandal. Emerald leaned back. Every word made him smaller, not in power, in soul. You used a woman in active addiction to move land, Emerald said. Then you used my father's fear to keep him quiet. Marcus's expression cooled. Be careful. I am, Emerald replied. That's why Emerald is listening so closely. He must have realized too late that she had not come to negotiate. She had come to hear him. Marcus lowered his voice. People like me build cities, Ms. Brooks. People like her family cling to blocks they cannot maintain. That did it. That was the sentence. The one that stripped all the polished language off the whole thing. Emerald stood up. She said, people like Marcus take history, paint it beige, and call it progress. Then she walked out. Claire was waiting by the curb with eyes wide. Please tell Claire he said something useful. Emerald held up her phone. Useful and disgusting. If Emerald was right, Marcus had just handed her the piece that could break his whole clean image open. So comment below. Was that his biggest mistake, or do men like that always think nobody from the neighborhood will ever fight back? By noon, attorney Yvette Price had filed an emergency motion in Harris County Civil Court to freeze the Pike transfers tied to the disputed lots. Yvette was the same older black attorney Adrian had been sitting beside at City Hall. Sharp suit, sharp eyes, no patience for nonsense. I don't need drama, Yvette told Emerald in the courthouse hallway. I need facts. Emerald handed her the blue envelope, Lena's copies, Claire's logs, and Marcus's recorded coffee speech. Yvette listened to the recording once, then smiled without humor. Oh, he's arrogant, she said. Good. Arrogance makes people sloppy. The hearing room was smaller than Emerald expected. Not glamorous, not cinematic, just wood benches, fluorescent lights, and the tired, serious hum of a place where paperwork changed lives every day. Warren Pike sat at one table with his attorneys. Marcus sat beside him, still composed, until he saw Emerald. Then he saw Adrian. Then he saw Lena, sober and straight-backed beside Deacon Ruth. And finally, he saw Claire walking in with a sworn affidavit in her hand. For the first time, Marcus Caldwell looked uncertain. The hearing moved quickly. Yvette laid it out plain. These transfers rely on signatures obtained through misrepresentation and completed with substituted pages. We are asking the court to freeze all action on the disputed parcels pending full fraud review. Stood to object, of course. He called Emerald a suspended associate with personal conflicts. He called Lena unreliable. He called the timing suspicious. Then Yvette introduced the title review forms Samuel and Lena actually signed, not transfer forms. Not deed releases, review forms, then the rehab payment receipt linked to Caldwell Community Outreach, then the church flyer with Marcus's name, then Claire's testimony. Claire spoke clearly with no drama. The documents allegedly leaked by Emerald Brooks were exported using her credentials through a partner-level override, Claire said. The print logs trace back to the device outside Mr. Caldwell's office. Ms. Brooks's laptop was not the source. Tried to shake her. Miss Donovan, are you saying you hacked firm records? Claire lifted one brow. No, sir. Claire is saying rich people should stop assuming the staff is stupid. Even the judge looked like he wanted to smile. Then Lena spoke. No tears, no speeches, just truth. I was sick, Lena said. Not absent, I know what I signed, and I know what I did not. That line landed in the room and stayed there. Finally, Adrian stood. Warren Pike's attorneys objected immediately. Yvette answered just as fast. Mr. Vale is here regarding financing and notice of irregularities. The judge allowed it. Adrian's voice was calm. Vale Stratton had been advising a lending group connected to a neighboring commercial package, he said. This morning I withdrew my firm from that representation and notified the lenders of disputed title concerns. They have paused funding pending review. Pike turned so fast his chair scraped. Marcus looked at Adrian like he had personally broken a rule between powerful men. Maybe he had. Adrian continued. I also submitted prior correspondence showing these concerns were raised before any alleged leak by Ms. Brooks. That was the sacrifice, not romance, not gesture, money, power, business. He had stepped away from a deal that would have made him richer because it was tied to something rotten, and he did it publicly. By the time Yvette played the recording from Black Walnut, Marcus's polished voice was filling the room with the words he never thought anyone from Third Ward would be able to make matter. People like her family cling to blocks they cannot maintain. The silence afterward was brutal. The judge did not raise her voice. She did not need to. By the end of the hour, all transfers on the disputed lots were frozen. The court referred the title filings for further fraud review. Caldwell and Pike's internal materials tied to the case were ordered preserved. And Marcus Caldwell's clean, careful tower of control had a crack running straight through it. He tried to speak to Emerald in the hallway afterward. She did not stop. Neither did Adrian. Neither did Claire. Neither did Lena. That was the thing about truth. Once it finally stood up, a lot of people who used to bow their heads could walk right past fear. The fallout hit fast. By evening, Pike Development's lenders had paused everything. Caldwell and Pike announced Marcus Caldwell was on administrative leave pending investigation. Warren Pike went on local TV and said he had full confidence in the process, which sounded exactly like a man who had no control left. Samuel cried when Emerald told him, not loud, just quiet tears in a hospital room while holding her hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "Her daddy should have told her sooner." Emerald squeezed his fingers. "He told me in time." Lena came the next day with coffee and 2 meeting chips in her purse. Not months, 2 days, tiny things, but real. "I can't fix backward," Lena said to Emerald outside the room. "I can only stay honest going forward." Emerald looked at her for a long moment, then she nodded. That's all Emerald is asking. Wasn't forgiveness all at once. It wasn't a perfect reunion. It was better than that. It was truth. 8 months later, Third Ward was still Third Ward, not saved, not magically repaired. But not stolen quietly either. The disputed lot stayed under review. Some owners got legal help. Others got time. A community land trust effort began with help from church leaders, local residents, and more lawyers than the neighborhood had ever seen working for free. Emerald did not go back to Caldwell and Pike. She got offers, yes. Nice ones too, big names, bigger paychecks, cleaner lobbies. She turned them down. Instead, she opened a small office on a corner near Emancipation and Elgin with a painted sign that read, Brooks Justice Center, not because it was fancy, because it was needed. Tenant rights, probate messes, title cleanup, recovery referrals, real help in plain English. Claire joined as operations director 3 months later after resigning from Caldwell and Pike with a goodbye email so sharp Emerald almost framed it. Samuel now worked lighter hours by choice, not because life forced him to. He kept herbs in pots outside the office and corrected everybody's watering habits like it was a public service. Lena was still in recovery, still taking it one day at a time, still rebuilding. But now when she said she was trying, it meant something people could see. And Adrian never tried to buy Emerald a future. That was probably why she trusted him. Vale Stratton quietly funded a neighborhood scholarship through a blind civic grant. Adrian sent pro bono attorneys when Emerald asked, and never when she didn't. Some weeks they argued over zoning language and laughed about it later over takeout. One evening, just after closing, Emerald stepped outside the office and found him leaning against the railing in a dark coat, looking too expensive for the block and too comfortable to care. Samuel saw him through the window and muttered, "That man still dresses like he got a meeting with money itself." Nearly dropped her pen laughing. Emerald stepped onto the sidewalk. Adrian straightened. "I used my full name this time," he said. She folded her arms. "That is growth." Smiled, not the public one, the real one, the one she had earned. "Dinner?" Adrian asked. "No secrets, no rival files, no emergency motions." Emerald pretended to think about it. "Will there be mini lemon cakes?" Adrian's eyes warmed. "If Emerald wants." She nodded toward the office door. "Then he may proceed, Mr. Vale." Behind her, Samuel called out, "Bring her back fed and respected." Adrian answered without missing a beat. "Wouldn't dare do otherwise." That made Samuel grunt in approval, which in father language was practically a blessing. Emerald laughed, and for the first time in a long time, the sound came easy. She walked down the steps beside Adrian, not behind him. That part mattered, always, because the story was never really about a rich man rescuing a woman from a hard life. It was about a woman who came from hard ground and still grew straight. And if there was a lesson in all of it, it was this. Money can open doors, but it cannot replace character. Love is only real when it leaves room for truth. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is protect where they came from, even if it costs the future they thought they wanted. Emerald lost a dream job, but she found her voice, her purpose, and a love that did not ask her to become smaller. And in the end, that was worth more than any office with a glass view. If you love this story, hit the like button, subscribe, share, and turn on your notification because more breathtaking stories are coming up and you don't want to miss any of them. See you on the next one.